Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. Today is an exciting milestone for the show. We have hit our 100th episode, and I wanted to do something a little bit special. I may live to regret this, but I've invited my father, Dick Bader, and my brother, Jordan Bader, to the show. If you didn't gather, my father was the founder of our family business, Acme Construction Supply, and my brother is the current owner and CEO. As was typical in our business discussions growing up, we would tend to be verbose and fighting to make our point. This led to overly long discussions and, surprise, surprise, today is no exception. Drawing upon the wisdom of my editor, we decided to make this a two-part series, another first for Distribution Talk. So enjoy part one of this little glimpse into the family dynamics that led me along my distribution journey. This episode was brought to you by my friends at Profit2. I invited their founder, Dave Roller, on the show to talk about their pricing philosophy and maybe spill the secret sauce. Over the course of my interview with Dave, I found that his methods were much in alignment with the manual digging process I've shared with clients over the years. His algorithms just did it a whole lot faster and easier than I could. It also helps that he comes from a distribution background and understands the needs of the wholesale distributor. Since Profit2 is a software as a service, and the operative word being service, they're uniquely positioned to provide real horsepower to your internal team. Come take a look at what Profit2 can do for you at www.profit2.com. That's profit with a number 2. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. All right. Well, hey, welcome to Distribution Talk. And we've got kind of a special episode. So I've decided to invite my father and my younger brother, Dick Bader and Jordan Bader, to the show, celebrating this milestone of 100 episodes. Pretty excited. We actually tried to do it at 50 and none of us could figure out how to get together. So we made it by 100 and we're pretty excited. At least I'm excited about this. And hopefully you as the listener can learn a little bit more about what makes me tick and why I got to where I am today. So first and foremost, thank you guys for taking the time. I really appreciate you doing this. And obviously really appreciate, how you have started off my career by kicking me out of the company so I could go off and pursue other activities. So again, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us both on. Dad's going to do a lot of the talking, but Jay, I just want to say that I have been truly impressed with the show you've produced and the career you've taken. I'll admit that the first time I saw you speak, right after you left Acme, I was pretty sure we were saving a seat for you back at Acme. And as I've gotten to see you speak and talk at different events, I'm truly impressed at the progression and how well you've done.
Only took 18 years to get there, but why not? So Dad, welcome.
Well, I think it was wonderful as a lead in there. We just want to correct one thing. We really didn't kick you out of the company.
That's true.
You resigned.
I did.
Unbeknownst to your brother, your mother, and I, as we sat in the front row and we heard it over a microphone with about 500 people in the audience.
Oh, there were a few more than that, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, there were. I just want to get that corrected there.
Okay, I didn't give you heads up. All right, yeah, man, that's revisionist history, I think.
Well, the good news is history kind of hangs on in here.
I got you.
He's going to regret this episode.
I know. I'm like, what did I get myself into? Hey, with Distribution Talk, one of the things I really enjoy doing is diving into the history a little bit. Dad, let's start with you and really talk about the history of you getting involved with distribution and kind of where that started for you and why you thought that this was a good career path for you. So please take it away.
Well, I really didn't have much thought about distribution. Actually, when I came out of school, I got a job in what I thought was going to be the real red hot career path, which would have been import-export.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to work for a company that was run by two very old guys, younger than I am, but old guys. And it was a tragic mistake. A friend of mine came in one day. I recognized him. We hadn't seen each other for a while. And the first thing he said to me, he says, "You're in the wrong place. Get out of here." And I said, "Get out of here to where? I still need an income." And he says, "No, I got a friend. I want you to meet him. His name is Maury Greenstein. He owns Cal Roof Wholesale at the time. And it was a company that was growing. And so I did. I went over and I met Maury, liked him. He had a lot of energy. He had 3 or 4 different departments. And he started me in what was called the contract hardware division. And the contract hardware division was a company that would do takeoff and specification of contract hardware for large commercial projects. Mm-hmm. So the first log roll of prints that was dumped on my desk was the U.S. Postal Office, which is currently down on, in fact, now I think they've shut it down, and now on 10th. And this was an enormous task because there are so many pieces of hardware. That's all the hinges, all the door pulls, all of the all the hardware that goes into a building like that.
Welcome to distribution. There you go.
Yeah,
kid.
That's it. So the net result is I work it all out. We put a figure on it. And then my boss, that department, said, "Now we send it back east to Russell." I said, "What do you mean we send it back east? Don't we put a figure and put the bid in?" And he said, "No, this is how it works." So it went back east and came back to us with the figure. The figure was probably 15 to 20% below our cost. And I thought, boy, this is a terrific money-making business here. Thinking it's a charity. Okay.
Sure.
So anyway, the upshot of it was that Russell would put the bid on. We got the bid. And in that time, you made it on the change orders. So at the end of the deal, took about 4 years to complete that project. We made quite a bit of money on it because the change orders were enormous. And that's how the business was run. It went on from there. And I thought, well, this is distribution, but I don't think I want any part of it. One little mistake and you're out of business. You are broke. So Maury, the owner of the company, recognized that I had some talent, I guess, and he moved me into his fastest moving part of the business, which was roofing distribution. He sold seconds as well as firsts. The business was really pretty good, except we couldn't get a direct connection with a manufacturer. We were two-stepping.
Gotcha.
We weren't competitive. So, we went along with it. I went along with it. But then he moved me within about 3 months. He moved me up to his door division. And this was a part of the business that manufactured or assembled, I should say, pre-hung doors for the home building industry. It was a business that he purchased. It was across the street and up on the 3rd floor where he had all the equipment and the employees. Well, the fellow that ran that department was a little bit on the disorganized side. Salesman would bring an order in and say, "Okay, Dave," which was his name, "when can I get this order to my customer?" "Well, just throw it up there on the thing and I'll take care of it later." Well, it never got taken care of. Customer never got an exact date as to when they would get this stuff. And after working there for about 30 days, I realized this guy is so disorganized, this thing is going to collapse. The foreman of the shop was very frustrated, as well as the entire sales team. So I spent a weekend after Dave, the manager of the operation, was out of the office, and he had a little room next to his office, which he called the key room. He took great pride in keying all of the locks that go out on these jobs. And I mean, you talk about a waste of time and talent. So anyway, I cleaned out his key room and put my office in there. And then I built a large easel type. Actually, I made it out of ceiling tile, and I put pins together representing the basic pre-hung door. Then we would go to what we call a double side light or a single side light. And these were front doors.
Yeah.
It would take about 1.5 production wise, it would take about 1.5 times the amount that it would build a single door to put one of these other frames together. And then I had it all set up by dates. 1 week, the second week. When a salesman brought in an order, I looked at the board, and I also coordinated this with the manager of the door division. And he thought this was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
And salesman would bring the order in. I would put the pins on the board, and I would tell him, all right, this is your date. Tell your customer that that's the day he's going to get his doors. Well, our business from that point on multiplied by 5. So it now became a profitable division, which it wasn't in the past. And needless to say, the owner of the company, Maury, was very excited about this. And it was very basic because, see, the thing of it is, there were no people in that company that had ever gone to college, that ever got any formal education. So to understand engineering a system that would benefit the company as well as the customer, more importantly, the customer, it was a totally foreign concept to them. And then one afternoon, I got a call from Maury, the owner's cousin, who was in the junk business.
Yeah. Yes.
I'd like you to come to lunch. And I said, well, sure, Merle. And I knew Merle from years past. We went to the same synagogue. And so I meet with he and his controller, then Ralph Miller. And he said, we would like to expand our opportunities out of the junk business into a legitimate distribution business. Okay, what do you got in mind? He says, well, we got a great connection on seconds in roofing, and we'd like to expand into a roofing business. Okay, great. What do you got in mind? He said, we want you to come and run it for us. And I laughed at him, and I said, look, I got a great job now. It's paying me well. I'm being promoted. Don't talk to me about you can really do things for me. Bottom line is, I will not leave this company unless there's equity involved. Period.
Yeah.
That's my deal. Okay. We terminated our lunch on that note. And I thought, well, I'll never hear from him again.
Yeah.
In any case, I got a call again about a month later, and he says, okay, we're going to re-meet on this subject. And he said, well, I'm buying out my father's interest in the junk company, and I will sell you, I forget what the percentage was, but in any case, I will sell you a percentage of that business. So you will be an owner and have an active role in earning income through the dividends of the company.
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, then essentially what we are going to do is form a partnership through the stock. And yeah, okay. And it worked well. We were together for 10 years.
Yeah.
In that period of time, we grew that little roofing thing, which was almost humorous. It was a little piece of a warehouse on Front Avenue. And by the way, my first employee was Wade Jewelison then. And we would use an old junk truck to deliver roofing to whomever we sold it to. Well, then it became a growth business. We were doing very well. And we moved over to a little warehouse over by Sears on the east side. And that's when we started our independence. We realized that one of the things that roofers experienced and hated was carrying bundles of roofing, 75 pounds each, up onto a roof and placing them up there to be worked on. Well, I had a little experience with hay bale conveyors. So I got one, hung a Briggs & Stratton engine on it. And since the hay bale had cleats, it was perfect for just setting roofing bundles on. So we mounted this thing. Well, actually, at first, we didn't even mount it. We just set it on top of the roofing, went out and made the delivery. One guy on the truck, one guy up on the roof, and the bundles went up, and it was very, very smooth. We loaded roofs, and we loaded them for a little premium over what everybody was selling roofing for at the time. Well, that little premium saved an awful lot of time and injury. to the roofing contractor. So in other words, it started our real philosophy of take away their pain. In other words, educate whoever is doing the selling to converse enough with your customer to know what's their pain.
Mm-hmm.
The pain was loading roofs.
Sure.
So essentially, we were the inventors of rooftop delivery. And that was the reason that our business grew to the point that we were using an entire 8-hour shift of production from a roofing plant, plus buying roofing from one other guy. And so it was a very successful business. We were in it for 16 years and then hit the depression. Being underfinanced as I was, working out of my back pocket very much, we got to a point to where we no longer could finance this business. And our manufacturer could recognize that right away. And they came in and said, well, we'll give you enough credit so you can keep this going. Fine. Big mistake. So what if somebody comes in and offers you more than you ever dreamed of? That's the time you should step back and take a deep breath. I didn't. I was young enough and decided to move forward with that. It was a great arrangement. And so we wound up owing a tremendous amount of money to a manufacturer. Then the recession hit. And the next thing I know, I'm talking to 7 attorneys from San Francisco. Of course, why not? They were going to use the attorneys' powerhouse, which was the Bay Area at the time, and they send up all these yokels. Well, I had 2 attorneys through the junk company that we worked with, and after about 2 days of them hollering at each other and arguing and going back and forth, we went out into the hall, and my attorney said, fire us. I said, well, that kind of leaves me in a tough spot here. And they said, no, fire us, because all we're doing is creating a lot of annuity for these other guys. And we got to get out of this because the arguing is costing X number of dollars an hour. I said, oh, well, okay, great. You're fired. And then I went back into the room and I said, okay, if I've fired my attorneys, I would appreciate it if you guys would clear off all these hot shots from San Francisco and bring in one guy. And if you'll give me a list of attorneys that you would approve from Portland, I'll be more than happy to choose one to represent me and we'll get this thing done. Okay. They give me a list. At the top of the list is one of my fraternity brothers. Well, now we're starting out pretty good here. In the meantime, I had purchased a company called West Pacific Sales, which is really the foundation company for Acme as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to somehow maneuver this thing so that we could keep that little company and not have a problem and have it interfere with the transaction to unload the roofing company, which we were able to do. And my attorney, my fraternity brother, was an absolute master. They didn't realize how good this guy was. And he let him go on and well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and so on. And then when they started to talk about my personal assets, in fact, one of the clowns in the room said, well, he's got a boat. We should take that too. And I said, okay, that's as far as this deal goes. You want to start screwing around with my personal stuff? The deal is over. I'm going over to my friend Mike Malarkey, and I'm going to give him the opportunity to buy this business. And he would have bought it in a New York minute. Mike was a good friend of mine over the years, and it would have been an easy out. But I didn't want to be in the roofing business anymore. I'd had 16 years of this thing.
Yeah.
And it was time to get out of it because it's not any good. So anyway, I felt we could do much better by focusing our time and energy on West Pacific Sales and growing that company, which we were able to do. And it was a good company. It just didn't have a lot of expansion. The people that were there were very good at what they did, but they didn't expand into the opportunities that were really available to them. So I had an opportunity to jump into that and really spend my time there. We also, during that period, got involved with a plumbing company. The thinking, here I go into a plumbing company.
You're talking about one of my first jobs. I have great memories of that plumbing company.
Well, I'd have given it to you then. But we went along with that for about 2 years, I think.
It was only losing 2 Mercedes a month. So it would have been a great business for you. It would have been fine.
Wonderful, and prestige was there too. So anyway, we finally decided to liquidate it. And thanks to my controller, Pat Collier, he said, yeah, this is a boat anchor. Yeah. We're going to cut the chain. And he did. We were able to get rid of that thing. I'm not going to say that we were able to get out of it clean, because we weren't. We lost money on it.
Of course you did. Yeah. You did.
Well, I would just interject with getting out was the clean part.
Yeah, that's true. Getting out. Okay.
Stopping the losses.
But the good news is the construction hardware supply was really doing well. West Pacific. Well, we wanted to bring West Pacific under the Acme umbrella. That was the good news. When I separated from my former partners, I was allowed to take the Acme name and use it, as we had built a logo, which still exists today. And our business needed a logo and it needed an identity. So we were able to step away from the West Pacific sales entity and convert it into Acme, as it's known today, as a construction supply company. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun dancing through all these hoops.
Sure.
But it was something, again, that we could apply our basic philosophy of take away their pain to this company and change the dynamic of what had consistently been kind of a staid company. I mean, they did the same things over and over again. And believe me, there were no new results coming from that. So that's kind of where that took us.
Sure.
And I do remember Dad sitting Jason and I down at the dinner table. I believe I was 10 years old, just the perfect time to talk about business. And Dad said, I think we're filing bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah. I remember this specifically. Oh, yeah.
Buddy, there's something you do remember. And I'm like,
I do.
Is bankruptcy a good term? I'm 10. And, at the time, I think it was just sort of the wake up call to the family and maybe our introduction to family business, though very young. And because honestly, it wasn't but a few years later that we were both working in the business, but it was the exit of the roofing business. And I will just also add that I think that there was a critical part that Pat Collier, as you alluded to, your controller at the time, eventually our CFO that helped us a ton, he had done, I think, a really good job of finding another lending partner for us at the time. And then also helping that company, the roofing company, I believe it was Bird & Sons, take on that debt and just take the business. The clean exit, is always a misnomer. But, I always look back on that transition as something that really helped Acme become what it is today.
Well, I think, Jordan, to your point, we can claim that this was a Bader family endeavor, but there were a lot of other people that really played pivotal roles in this and really allowed us to, as you said, exit that roofing debacle thing. And let's face it, Pat also, had a very big part in helping the company realize, or the family realize, that the plumbing supply company was just not something that we were really geared to do. That if we really ran with one horse, what became Acme and Acme Construction Supply, if we ran with that, it would be so much better for us. And I think that's, maybe sometimes we don't give Patrick enough credit for this, but
I do.
Well, I know you do. Yeah. But maybe, again, being young, we don't always give him enough credit, saying, hey, you really did us a solid there, man. You really helped us realize that we needed to focus, to get really, really hyper focused on the entity that eventually was going to pay for our college and employ us, because we really couldn't do anything better than that. Kind of a good segue there. The decision to bring the family into the business. I know this has been it's a challenging one for a lot of parents. They have an entity that they've built up, and they have, young children, and they debate, do we bring them into the company? When's the right time to bring them in the company? I always refer to that as, breaking of child labor laws, getting us into the company at a very young age. If you wouldn't mind, just, Dad, for a second, talk about what your thoughts were bringing us into the company and really, what you wanted to see coming into the organization.
Well, naturally, I think everyone likes to see, particularly when you have two sons, see them come into your business. And it's something really driven more by the female component in a marriage than the male component in a marriage. Because I knew that a business, particularly a business like this, it was a family business, yes, but there could only be one person controlling that business. And that was a tough decision to have to make. Fortunately, it was a decision that Jason made for us. And
Yeah.
At the time we thought, wow, what's this? And it sure made our lives a lot easier.
Yeah.
Man, you mean I should still get dividends for that? I mean, come on now.
Our company is your dividend, buddy.
Yeah. Well,
No.
And I'll let Jordan speak to your dividends. And good luck there. The opportunity to bring your family into that business and maintain the structure of a family business. Because one thing I learned over the years, that once a company goes public, or once it is moved to a larger entity and purchased by a larger entity, an awful lot of the driving force that made that company very successful business is something that a lot of people that have never been in a family business don't understand, that it is family and the relationship you have with your employees that really make a business successful. And that's how you can get your running legs on. You're no longer crawling. You are actually running, and you're running because your employees are driving it forward.
If I could just add, I tell everybody, being in a family business, I am incredibly grateful for the business that you created, Dad, and Jason, you as well, helped create, that I now run and I'm fortunate enough to run. Being in a family business is difficult. And when you talk to your boss, which is your dad, and your brother, which had seniority over me, I said things to you guys that I would never have said to my boss that I wasn't related to, or another coworker. And I think that as I am now running the business without any other baiters there or present, I think about that a lot, that as wonderful an opportunity as it's been, I really have to think about that impact on the employees. And I've taken some of, our conversations that we would have that got rather heated at times as we were discussing what wanted to do, and, stomping of our hands and feet about our opinions. I still think about that impact on others. Now, at the same time, Dad, as you brought us into the business, you showed continuity and you showed this stability for our employees that I still have, and celebrate some of our employees with 40 plus years of experience with Acme, starting with you, and they are incredible additions of history to our company. And they still continue that stability for our employees. It's amazing to bring in a new employee. And Jason, at some point we'll talk about our recruiting, but yeah, it's amazing to bring in a new employee and introduce them to somebody who worked for my dad. I was always proud to introduce Wade Julison, and Wade was even more proud to tell everyone that he was driver and employee number one. And
didn't he have a jersey made up? He had a jersey made up with a number one on the back. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
And his son continued that as well. Mark came to work, with the organization. So, yeah.
Yeah. Mark's still a valuable member of our group, and somebody I always enjoy seeing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that stability of a family business does help a lot. I'm grappling with that decision now. Do I bring the kids in or don't I? And my oldest is 21. I've got two sons and a daughter, and I look at the three of them and I think my daughter's probably the toughest one. So, maybe she's the one. Yeah. Maybe she's the one who should, be head at Acme. But it is a tough decision, because I was lucky enough, and I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, Jason, and I love listening to the family businesses that you interview, and they talk about, I didn't want to get in the business.
Yes.
And that is certainly my story. Jason was already there, and I thought, well, there's probably not room for me as well. I'm going to go do something else. And, when Dad pulled me into the business. And I was studying human resources in college. He said, I really need help here. And once I was able to get in and get that connection with employees, it was sort of addicting. And that one-on-one connection. And then I felt like, man, as I get to know each of them through being involved with their benefits and with wellness programs, I sort of took on this feeling of ultimately I am supporting what at that time was maybe 60 or 70 families, and now over 300 families. I felt this real connection to making sure that, I respect that. I lead every meeting that we have with managers with recognizing the decisions we make here affect 300 families. So let's act accordingly.
Right. Jordan, I think your point's very well taken. And we got into the business for different reasons, and we came in obviously at slightly different times, not too terribly far apart from one another, but it was kind of at a pivotal time when there were things that were needed. I gravitated more towards that IT side. And at the time, we were grappling with, running cables and getting under desks and doing things like that, and those were things that we just needed to move forward in. And so I think, you and I each had that opportunity to kind of come in and make our mark in the organization. When we eventually joined and we were invited into joining the organization, this is something that I share with a lot of second generation people or next generation people, I should say, because many of the people I work with are multi-generation. But I talk about, with that person coming in the organization is ultimately finding how do they make their mark? What is going to be that thing that they put on the company that makes them feel like they were a part of the build?
Yeah, for me, it was really about that I had a skill set that I could bring, however underdeveloped it was at the time. But that
great ideas, man.
Oh,
you were full of ideas.
That's usually HR, right? You come in with a lot of, great idealistic plans, and then you get hit with all the compliance side of HR. And I couldn't.
Right. Get slapped with realities.
But I was fortunate enough to find a passion for our employees and building the company that kept me around. And then so that translated for me.
As mentioned earlier, this is part one of a two-part series. Be sure to look for the continuation of our discussion hitting the digital airwaves next week. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.